All right, hello everybody. So today what I want to do is move forward with the project. I think this will hopefully be it's going to have to be the last video. We're definitely running out of time. This video though, I'm going to go through and show you how to hook up the special event. So the previous videos, I showed you how to basically set up the project, how to integrate the Swift UI with the sprite kit, and also how to transition between different scenes in a linear fashion. As we know, one of the specifications of the project is to be able to interrupt a scene. For example, let's say you're collecting wood. Partway through, you can randomly interrupt it and have a bear chase you. And then you have a specific number of steps you have to take to get away from the bear. Once you do that, you go back to the original scene you were at the same position. So this is a little bit of work actually. So I'm going to go through the steps and show you how to do that. All right, so I'm just on the D2L site here. Now one thing I want to keep in mind, I want to just make you guys aware, please be aware there is a Watch Project 2020. That's the repo, and I don't know if everyone has access to this repo yet. Please make sure that you send me your GitHub account name so I can add you as a collaborator. And that way you can then pull down that repo. And of course, you're then going to want to go through my 3 previous videos to walk through the steps. And then once you've done that, you can get to the point where we're at today, where we're going to do this last bit where we're going to, have the dynamic behavior. So for today's lesson, I've posted some files here. So if you go to, let's see here, April 14th lectures, you'll notice that I have a bear scene. So you're going to want to download that. And also there is a series of assets called bears. So the bear scene is simply going to be the scene that we're going to add that represents that special event. And bears is assets that are going to represent the bear character. All right. So I've got my project here, and this follows up to my last video. So I'm going to go into this and open it up in Xcode. Okay, we've got Xcode here. There we go. All right, so just to review, if I were to run this, it's going to fire up the simulator. It's going to go through a couple scenes where you're walking to collect some resource. And then when you're done, you're going to get the win scene. So this pretty much has everything that I've covered in the previous videos. So right now it's just loading up. It's a little bit slow, just loading up the sprite kit. The simulator. Here we go. Okay, wow, it's really slow. I need to do some edit. It's going to make me have to do some editing now to shorten this this gap here. Okay. Here we go. Here we go. So all right, collecting wood, and I think we add a step count of 5 for this. So we get to 5. It's now going to transition to the next one. Get to the chopper, I believe, has a step count of 7. So we're simulating obviously the step count using a timer. There goes the guy, and he gets to 7, and then we show that you're done. You win, essentially. So all we're going to do today is we're just going to add in the ability to randomly interrupt one of those first 2 scenes with this bear scene. So the steps we're going to do, first thing we're going to do is we're going to add the bear scene. So I'm going to get that set up, and I'm going to set it up like a regular scene so I can just have it as sort of a standalone scene. And at that point, it won't interrupt anything. It'll just basically work in a linear fashion. So to do that, I'm going to go to my, my project, and I'm going to add a new file. This is going to be a Swift file, and I'm going to call this bear scene. Okay, and I need to move it down to my, with my other files here. Okay, so I've got bear scene, it's opened up. Now the file that's on D2L that I downloaded, I'm going to replace that bear scene with the one that I just downloaded. Let's go here. Okay, so I'm gonna just open this up in Xcode as well. And I'm just gonna copy everything. And I can close this up. All right, so I've got my bear scene here. Now let's see if there's any issues that come up. Don't see any. It looks like it will work. Okay, I don't see any compile errors or anything. So the other thing you'll notice right away is that there's an image named bear1, and then it loops through and loads bear 1, 2, 3, and 4, and it creates an animation. So this is all SpriteKit stuff right here where it's creating an animation. And that's just a simple framed animation to have the bear walk towards you. So I need to also add my images. So I've got my walk animations here, and I'm also going to go now and I'm going to basically grab these bear images. So I'll just unzip this, and I can drag these images into my assets right here. So there's bear 1, bear 2, bear 3, and bear 4. All right, so they've all been added. So the next step is really to go into my scene manager, and I can now simply, instead of creating a walk scene, I'm going to comment that out, and I'm going to go ahead now and create a bear scene. So current scene equals bear scene, and I need to fill out the parameters, so it's going to get a size, I believe. And I can go check the initializer for this class here if I want. Okay, so let's see what it needs. It needs a size, it needs a goal, and it needs a status. Okay, so I passed it its size. It needs a goal, and we'll say the goal is 10, and it needs a status. Or stats, sorry, UI stats. So I will pass it for that. I'm going to pass it my UI stats, a reference to my UI stats variable. And let's see. Okay, it doesn't quite like that. That's wrong. Bear scene is not. Interesting. Okay, let's just try running this and see what happens. Okay, so it seems to be working. All right, here we go. It's installing on the simulator. Okay, it didn't quite. No, it's still going. I just see a compiler there. Okay, so here we go. We got the escape bear. All right, now one thing you'll notice, the bear is obviously scaling up. That is part of the bear scene. There's already code there that will interpolate the scale of the bear and position it and move it closer towards you as you get closer to your goal. So as you can see here, when I created this, I passed in a goal of 10. And I passed in, so I passed in the goal of 10. So once it gets to 10, it's done. Now, the only thing it's that the bear scene doesn't do right now is it's not calling back into my scene manager to say, go to the next scene. But that's not really a big deal because we're going to have a little bit of different behavior to handle that. But let's go ahead and add that anyway, just so we can at least use this as a regular scene. So if I look at my walk scene, when I get to the end of my step count, I make a call here to self.move to next task. All right, and in here you'll notice there's a timer that after 3 seconds, it's going to call scene manager move to next scene. So if I want the bear scene to also do that, all I have to do is go in here and I am going to place this same code inside there. And now I can build and run it. And now the bear scene will transition to the get to chopper scene once it's complete. Okay, so escaping the bear. Okay, and then we get to chopper, okay? And once that's done, then of course we just get the game over. You win. Okay, so that was pretty easy. So the good thing there that I'm showing you guys is you've got the bear scene, and I'm not going to go through all the code, but it's, look here, I mean, it's only 80 lines of code. So it's basically all SpriteKit, okay? It creates an animation, it loads an image node or a sprite node. It applies the animation to that sprite node, and then it also positions that node. So there's a function here, position bear, and based on how close you are to your end goal, it's going to scale and position the bear appropriately. Well, I guess just scale it, actually. I don't see any position code. So it's very, very simple here. So it should be easy for you guys to go through and look up if there's anything you want to understand better. You can go and look it up. All right. So the good thing is we have that scene. It's easy to hook up. Now we still have to add our new behavior. So we want the bear scene to be able to interrupt another scene. And there's actually a fair bit of steps that we have to take to make this happen. So basically, we need to make some modifications to our scene manager. So right now, when I look at my scene manager, okay, I can see that basically we have a current scene variable here. And this current scene, essentially, we just create it and we let that scene take care of itself. And when that scene is done, it makes a callback to move to next scene. And then what we do is we create another current scene and we let that scene do what it wants. So we need to add, the scene manager needs to have a little bit more behavior now. We need to have a little bit more logic so it can interrupt the current scene. And there's many ways that we could go about doing this. So the way that I'm going to demonstrate how to do this is to basically create two scenes. So we're going to have a current scene, and we're also going to have a special scene, and that is going to be an SK scene as well. And notice here that I'm using the forced unwrapped variable type here, basically telling my class that the current scene is special and don't trust me, I'm going to initialize it. But in the case of my special scene, I know that this is going to be a bear scene. So I can come into here and my special scene can equal the bear scene. So I'll just take this code here, I'll copy it, and there we go. I've created my bear scene, and now I can get rid of this, and I can reset my code back so that it's going to use the collect wood scene again. So I've done that. I've created my bear scene. These are really, okay, these are actually legit. I was going to flip out. These are actually legit compile errors. So I need to get the current device and get the bounds in order to calculate the size. So there we go. I've got that. Please make the compile errors go away, Xcode. Okay, maybe later. Okay, so we've got that set up. Now, the next issue that if we were to actually run this, the problem is right now when we create our scenes, they all create individual timers. So, for example, if I look at my walk scene, as soon as I create it, okay, on scene did load, it basically comes in here and it creates a timer. And this timer starts running automatically and it updates the step count. So for the scene manager to be able to work with these scenes and be able to switch between them, we need to, well, my strategy is I'm going to remove these timers. Okay, I'm going to get rid of the timers in in the walk scene and in the bear scene, and I'm going to instead use a function called increment count or something. Maybe I'll come up with something else, but basically the scene manager now is going to contain the timer, and it's going to update whatever the current scene is to update its step count. So to do that, let's just do that step right now. So I'm gonna remove these timers. So all I have to do is just get rid of that timer. Actually, no. Let's add the actual function. So I'm gonna create a function. So func. Shall say public func. increment steps. And I'm going to put all of my code for the steps inside there. So that's basically all of the code that increments the timer. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to place it inside my increment steps function. And remember, the scene manager now is going to call increment steps. The scene manager is going to contain the timer. And this is a nice change because it reduces my code a little bit. It makes things a little bit simpler. Now my walk scene and my bear scene, they're going to have less code. And that's something I always like. So I have all these self.steps. I don't need that because I'm not doing this inside a closure anymore. So I can just reference the variables directly. I'm just going to change my indentation. Okay. So I'm going to go through and just remove all the self dot. You could actually just use it with self dot. It's not an actual error, but it's going to make my code a little bit easier to read because there'll be less of it. So that's kind of nice. So here I go. Okay, timer.invalidate. I don't need that anymore. Okay, there we go. So there's my function there. And now inside my actual timer, I can completely get rid of this now. All right, so there I go. And there's some other code I can remove. Like you're noticing here that I have a task text and a step text. Remember, we're using Swift UI, so I can remove those as well, and that's going to simplify my code even more. So task text, I can get rid of this. And I'll remove these commented out pieces of code as well. Okay, so I've got increment steps. I've added that. Okay, I just got to remove these now. Okay, so yeah, I have a lot of, so these are just text nodes in SpriteKit, but once again, yeah, that's nice. So now I'm down to, I mean, I've significantly reduced how much code I have. So this is going to be pretty nice to work with. All right, so I've got that, increment steps, which is nice. And I can go in and do the same thing in the bear scene, in fact. So I'll grab this function here just so I keep the same name, I'm consistent. And I'm going to go into my bear scene. And I'm going to add in increment steps. And I'm going to take all this code inside the timer, copy that, and paste that in here. And I'll remove all of the self. Okay, so we got increment steps there, and then of course I'm going to remove this actual timer because I don't need it. All right. Okay, so this looks pretty good. Now the other thing I need to do though is actually create a timer inside my scene manager. Because these scenes now are not going to take care of the incrementing their time, I'm going to have to do this inside Scene Manager. So let's go back and we'll set that up. So I'm inside Scene Manager. I'm going to create a new function, which is going to be called Start Timer. Okay, so adding the start timer here. So basically, I'm going to put in the code for timer dot scheduled timer. Okay, so it's an interval timer with 1 second. It repeats. And the actual code that's going to run inside a closure. Okay, so basically I need to take inside here, I need to take the, I have a, okay, with time interval. So I'm just going to take the current scene, and I want to then make a call into my, so for example, if I have a walk scene, I'm going to call increment steps, or if it's a bear scene. So I'm going to go current scene dot increment steps. This is what I want to do. Okay, now there is going to be an issue I'm going to have to deal with here, because current scene is a spritekitscene. That's the type of variable I'm using. And in spritekitscene, there is no increment steps. So that becomes a bit of an issue. How can I basically, I want to use this variable current scene. I want to use it polymorphically so that I'm able to use an interface to call the increment steps function. Now, I tried a couple things. The first thing I tried was to add an extension to the spritekitscene class that would add the function increment steps. The problem there is that SKScene is not a Swift. It's not a Swift class. It's an Objective-C one. So because of that, you're not allowed to do that. So the solution that I came up with was to add a protocol. And the protocol is called increment protocol. And I'm going to add one function to begin with. So that's going to be function increment steps. Okay. And now what I can do is I can go to my other classes. For example, my bear scene and my walk scene, and I can now have them implement that protocol. So if I go to bear scene, okay, I have it implement the increment protocol, and I can also do that with my walk scene. And I do also have to do that with my win scene, unfortunately. So even though I'm not really doing any stepping at this point, that's something though that you could easily go and fix up by not treating the win scene as a scene where you would actually need to do this. So I'm just going to fill out an empty function for now for this, just so I get rid of that compile error. Okay, so now I should be able to go and say current scene.incrementsteps, except I'm still saying that current scene is of type SKScene. So I need to change that so it is now of type increment protocol. All right, so that'll make this issue go away. Now we'll be able to call, okay, maybe not. Reference to property current, oh, I have to use self. So I just have to put self there because it is a closure, so it needs to capture its environment to run that. So there we go, that makes that compile error go away, which is great. There's gonna be one more error though. So hopefully just at this point you guys can just understand exactly what I'm doing here, that I need to be able to call this increment steps function, and I need the scenes to all implement that protocol. So if I go now and build and run, I am going to have another compile error I'm going to have to deal with. And let's see, what is the error I'm getting? This is inside, okay, timer.invalidate, there's no more timer. So that's gone. Let's try it again. And I think there will be another error I'm going to have to deal with in Scene Manager. Okay, so right here, this is the problem. where I have a function that gets me the current scene, and this is needed inside my content view to be able to display the scene. And this is discussed in a previous video. Okay, so the problem is I've changed current scene to be of type increment protocol, but this function needs to return a spritekitscene. So we need a workaround for that. Now, so what I've got here, what I'm going to do then is I'm going to add another function. So I'm going to create a function called getSkScene, and it is going to return a spritekitscene. So I now need to go and implement this inside all of my classes. So go to a win scene, and this is going to be a very, very simple function. So function getSkScene, return self. Okay, because this class win scene, it inherits from skScene. So if we return a reference to this class, that's going to be a spritekitscene. So I can copy this, and I will paste this into my walk scene. Okay, I'll do that as well for the bear scene, and that should be good. So I just now need to go and modify my scene manager, and I'm basically going to say current scene dot. I'm not getting any IntelliSense here. What did I call that function? getSkScene. Okay, so sorry, I had to step away for a second. I think this is where we left off here, though. I was basically adding in the protocol. So we added the getCurrentScene to the protocol, or getSkScene to the protocol. That way, each of our let's see, increment protocol variables now have the ability to also extract the spritekitscene. Now it looks like I added a semicolon there. That's not good. So let's run this. It looks like I'm getting a compile error. We'll see if we do have a compile error, and we'll fix it if we do. All right, so we've had this variable self.specialScene used before initialized. So in other words, I simply need to move this. This is part of our singleton pattern. I need to assign the instance variable equal to self. So you can't use self until everything has been initialized. So now when I run this, I think that'll be it for compile errors. So let's try that. Now at this point, because we've removed the timers and we've set up the ability to use a timer now in the scene manager, we have to now go and hook up that timer. So as you can see, the collect wood is not moving. It's not moving the step count, and that's because we're not calling our function yet in our protocol, which is incrementsteps. So inside here, I do have a timer that calls incrementsteps, but I need to actually hook that up. So I'm going to say start timer, and this is coming inside my initializer. So now when I run this, you will see the step count increment, and we will see transition to the other scenes. Okay, so just firing up here. It's really taking its time. I need a faster MacBook here. What is going on? Okay, we'll just let it run. So after we get this up and running, then we're pretty much in a position now where we can hook up the bear scene. So we'll add some code that'll randomly check every frame to see if we want to trigger the bear scene. And if we do, we're going to switch to using the bear scene, and when the bear scene's done, we'll switch back. Okay, so I'm not too confident here. Let's see what my performance is. Okay, so I'm going to stop that. I'm going to quit my simulator because it seems to be hanging. And let's try this again. Okay, here we go. All right, so we can see here that the collect wood, it's incrementing the count. This is all being done now from the scene manager. Okay, so we had a little bit of an issue there that it appears that it skipped the second scene. So what we would have expected to happen would have been for the collect wood scene to call move to next scene, and then at the end the get to chopper scene would call move to next scene. What's happening, I believe, is that the move to next scene is being called a couple times by the collect wood scene. So what I can do in my scenes here, you'll notice that I have in my walk scene, when I move to the next scene, I do it using a timer. So right here, move to next task gets called when we reach our step goal. And then we have a 3-second timer. So the easiest way to fix the bug that I just saw is to just remove this timer and then keep everything using a very linear flow. So now it's immediately going to move to the next scene. Now the advantage of using the timer was just that you could have a little bit of delay between finishing the scene and moving to the next one. If I were to take a little bit more time, I could keep this timer and just basically synchronize how I'm transitioning. But because I want to get this video fairly short and this isn't the main thing, I'm just going to remove these timers. So I can go in, same thing with the bear scene here. So move to next task. Okay, so let's try this again. And now at least we should see the same flow as we had before. Okay, there we go. So we did see there was a slight visual issue where the UI didn't reset. Okay, and then we have you win. All right, so basically works. The bugs that we had in terms of the UI, that can be simply fixed if we go into each of the scenes and we update the UI inside the initializer. So we have step goal equals goal, but we say UI stats.current objective equals label. We would have to go and do something like this. We would have to go UI stats dot, what's the name of it? It's our step counter here. Steps remaining equals 0. Okay, and I can do that as well with the bear scene. And let's just go back and take a quick look at my, okay. So that is a bit strange. I was actually doing that right here. So I would have expected that to have worked. That's a very minor bug, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time. But we would like, obviously, the UI to be accurate for every frame that we see. So I'll just take a quick run through. I don't know if that's actually going to fix it. So we have collect wood. Yeah, so it doesn't. So get to the chopper should start at 0, not 5, and then go back to 1. Okay, but I don't want to get hung up on that. That's just basically a timing issue that we can fix later. So the next step really is to now try to hook up the special scene. Okay, So we have our special scene, we're creating it, but we're not doing anything with it. So what I've decided to do is I need to add some Boolean. I was going to add like a Boolean, and that's kind of a lot of times a first instinct is to have a Boolean, whether or not the Boolean variable could represent whether we're in our regular scene flow or we're using our special scene. But the only issue there is often then you have to add more Booleans. For example, is it game over or not? So one of the things that I really like doing is to add an enumeration. And this can allow us to basically use almost what's called a state machine. So I'm going to add an enum, and I'm going to call this game mode. And the values I'm going to have is walking. So this would represent a regular mode. I'm going to have special event, and I'm going to have game over. Okay. So in a lot of situations, you might end up with several different states you would want in your app. And if you're just using Boolean variables, you're going to end up with several Boolean variables and really complex logic. So using a enumeration is a really good technique here. So I'm going to create a variable now of type game called game mode, and it's going to be of type game mode. And I'm going to say game mode equals game mode dot walking. Okay. All right. So inside my timer now, I am going to have to add an if statement, if else statement, because I only want to increment whatever the current scene is. And also inside my get current scene, I'm also going to have to put in a statement there because if I'm using the walking state, I want to return my current scene. But if I'm in the special event, then I want to return the bear scene so that that's what will actually be displayed. Now, in addition to that, I also need to add a function which is going to check for the special event. So basically every frame when I increment my current scene, I'm also going to have a function I'm going to call that's going to check to see if I want to move to the special event. So I'm going to call this function check for random special event. Okay, and I need to get a random value, so I'm going to say let rand value equal int dot random, and I can give it a range, so I'm going to give it a range between 1 and less than 10. And then with that value, I'm going to say if rand value equals 5. So I have basically a 1 in 9 chance here. So if rand value equals 5, then I want to now transition to my special game mode. So I'm going to say game mode equals game mode dot okay, so I'm going to move to the special event game mode. And all right, and I'm going to make one more small change. I have my special scene here. The problem is I'm only creating it one time. So that'll work if I'm only going to ever use one bear scene the entire game. But if I want to use multiple bear, like if I want to trigger this special scene over and over again, then I really have two options. I could write some code that would reset that scene, which would be simple to do. The other option, though, is to take this and just reinitialize it. So if I'm going to go into that special scene, I just basically recreate it right here. And I'm going to run into a compile error. I just need to make this I can't remember the exact name, explicit unwrapped optional variable. Okay, so there we go. That's going to allow me now to not have to initialize it fully. And I'm going to need to grab these two variables because they're needed for the initialization. Okay, so we've got the special event. So inside here, I now need to check. Every frame when I do my timer, this is kind of like our update loop. You can almost think about this as similar to the games we made in the summer where we have a main update loop. So this timer is going to run every second, and this is where we want to do our check. So I'm going to say if game mode equals game mode dot walking, this is where I want to increment my steps, and I also want to check for random special event. Okay. And else if game mode equals game mode dot special event, here I'm going to want to self dot special scene. I'm going to increment the special scene. And I don't want to check for the random event because I'm already using the random event. Right. Okay, so the other place I need to do that is down here where I return the scene. So I'm going to grab this code here because that might make it a little bit faster. And I'm going to do my same if-else check. Oops. Okay, I'll just do it from scratch here. So if game mode equals game mode dot walking, then I want to return the regular scene. Else, I want to return the special scene.get sk scene. Okay. So I'm seeing some compile errors here, but not really trusting Xcode. So let's just try building it and we'll see if they go away. They don't. Okay. Oh, right. Game mode itself dot game mode. Okay. All right. Let's try that again. Okay, so here we go. So if this works, we'll see okay, right away it triggers the escape bear. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, now we are going to have a bit of an issue. Okay, so the escape bear scene, it triggered right away. Let me just run that one more time. It is supposed to be a 1 in 9 chance, I believe. So we should, often we'll get a little bit further in. So we can see here, it's collecting wood. Okay, now it triggers the escape bear. So the one issue that we ran into there was after the escape bear scene ends, we need to then transition back to the regular scene, okay? Just like here where we check for random special event and we change our game mode to special event, we also need to switch back to our previous scene. So to do that, if I go into my bear scene, what we notice right now, when the scene is over, move to next task, we call scene manager move to next scene, okay? But that is not what we want to do. That is what we want to do in a regular walk scene where we want to transition from collecting wood to getting to the chopper. But here we're going to need to, we need a function that basically represents that the special event is over. So I'm just going to say special event over. And I'm now going to go and add this function to my scene manager. So here we go. So function special event over. And what this is going to do is just basically say that the game mode is now it's game mode.walking. And I think that's all we need to do really. That should basically reset the game to start using the previous scene that we were using before. So let's try running this again. So now when we go into our bear scene, after it's over, we should be able to get back to the scene we were previously in. Okay, so it's collecting wood. Okay, there we go. We got the bear coming. So here comes the bear. We got to get out. We got to get out. And okay, we get to 10 steps. Okay, now, okay, so it goes back. Okay, so we can see there's a problem once again with the UI. And also, it's continuing to, even though the game is over, it's continuing to randomly trigger the bear event. So there's two issues we definitely need to fix. So let's tackle the first one. So in other words, when we're updating, anytime we update the regular scene, we need to make sure that the UI is up to date for the Swift UI. So to do that, if I go into my walk scene, and I've got my stats here, in my increment steps, I'm saying UI stats.steps remaining equals steps. But I also need to set the objective. So remember, increment steps is going to be called every frame, every second by the scene manager. So as long as we're setting the label, okay, so unfortunately label is not a variable. Okay, so I need to store the variable here for my label. So I'm going to create a string. So var string stat label, and I'm going to say stat label equals label. Now I can use that. Now I've cached that variable. So stat label is my current objective. Okay. Okay, it doesn't like that. Stat label. Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry. Okay, stat label is the name and it's of type string. There we go. Okay. So that is now going to fix that issue. The win scene is also going to have this issue as well, but we're going to prevent the win scene from ever triggering the bear scene. So let's just run this and make sure, and we'll verify that fixes that UI bug that we were seeing. And then the last thing I'm going to show you guys to do is to prevent the win scene from ever also triggering the bear scene. Okay, it's not going to, okay. So that's just some bad luck there. Let's try that again. Okay, right away we get the bear. So the bear is going to come in. When it goes back, the UI should be, it should display the collect wood. Okay, it does. There is a little bit of a delay. And then we have get to the chopper. All right, and our win scene is not displaying the correct text, I'm noticing as well. Okay, so let's just fix that. The win scene right now, when it comes in, it sets the stats to the current objective, but in my increment steps, it's not setting that. So we know that increment steps is called every frame, so this way we'll force it to repaint the scene and use the correct text. So let's run this again. We should see that text be correct now. Okay, escape bear, here it comes. Okay, back to get to the chopper. Okay, and then we have our you win. And then of course it triggers the bear. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to prevent it. What I want to do is prevent it from randomly spawning the bear scene. So what I have here, I already have my game over. So what I can do is when in my move to next scene, when the last scene that I create is the win scene, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say game mode equals game mode dot game over. Okay, so now I know that the game is over, and I can basically check for this condition. So up here in my if-else statement, I can now have another else if, and it's going to be self.gamemode equals gamemode.gameover. And if that's the case, I'm going to say I'm going to say self.current_scene.incrementsteps. Okay, but what I'm not doing is I'm not going to check for the random event. So I'm going to increment it. That way the UI will keep updating, but I'm not actually going to have it spawn the random event. And now when I come down to here, so I have if game mode equals walking, I'm going to also do or game mode equals, or if it's game over, I'm going to give the current scene up. So let's try running this. This should pretty much be the working version. Now it does have a slight bug with the UI. Maybe I'll take a quick stab at fixing that. And the bug that we're going to see is after the bear scene comes back, well, even there you see it's not updated for one frame. So we have escape bear. Okay, now it goes get to the chopper and you win. Okay, so there we go. That's pretty much, and now the bear scene isn't going to run. So in terms of the next steps, if you are at this step that I'm showing you right now, all that's left is to take the correct professional assets that are listed on D2L and replace my debug ones with the correct background and the character. And then your project is pretty much done. Now this is a slightly annoying UI issue where the UI is a frame behind where it should be. So in terms of how to fix that, what we could do, let's see here. Well, if I go into the walk scenes, okay, so anytime we do increment steps, it basically updates the our UI. So the fastest way I could fix this issue, this isn't maybe a completely correct fix because it's going to speed up the simulation slightly. But what I could do is I could come into my scene manager, and let's see here. Basically, anytime we move to the next scene, I could make a call to current scene increment steps. Right? And also, when I come back from the special event over, I could also go current scene increment steps. Okay, so I'll run this. Let's see if that's going to fix the UI issue. It is going to speed up my simulation by a frame, which isn't really desirable, but I want to keep this short. I would have to investigate and do a bit more work to get a more correct fix. That didn't work. Okay, let's see if it works for this. Okay, so I'm not going to go with that fix. So I'm going to have to leave that to you guys. If the UI is not, the Swift UI component is a frame behind where it should be. I mean, that's a fairly minor bug anyway, but that would be a nice one to fix. Doing this increment steps doesn't seem to be doing the trick for me here, though. All right, so I'm gonna conclude this video. Keep in mind that we had now 4 videos, and this is the final one. So if you go through and you follow the steps in the video, you should be successful in getting a working game running. If you get stuck on anything, you can always email me and ask for help. And good luck finishing your project.